Today's story is about a guy named Lu Yao, a completely unhinged individual who, after being taken hostage, decided to beat the kidnapper to a pulp. Stubborn the boy was being, he dismissed the idea that others knew about the item he was carrying. The Reen then began to mock him for being cornered. Man, but the spider completely ignored her and asked the protagonist if he would accept her eggs. Seeing that this fighter was now thoroughly disgusted, the hero needed to give the best response to survive, so he decided to take the initiative. He looked at the creature with a menacing expression and confronted it, daring to talk to her like that, which left her quite confused. Lu pointed out that the Bissell spider only wanted him to bear its young, treating him as a simple, soulless donor. And when the creature tried to argue against that, the man interrupted her, saying it was super awkward that she wanted to have babies with him, without even talking about the future first. With that, the status of both the demon and the mysterious woman changed to friendly, which left the protagonist quite intrigued. Seeing this, the onlookers were stunned by how smooth he had been. According to the presenter, that move had been endorsed by a multitude of gender equality organizations. She then received news that the fourth candidate, who was resting at home, had expressed interest in a contestant for the first time and was requesting information about the protagonist. At home, she had become interested in a contestant for the first time and was asking for information about the protagonist. Meanwhile, he was pondering the strange system message that he had received. He quickly realized that there were more than 3 female entities involved in the program. Only then did he hear his name being called. The third guest appeared right behind him as he was contemplating how he should keep his location a secret. Before, it angered the thief, who boasted that he could end it all with a single bullet, but Reen calmly pointed out the thief's location. Confusion morphed into surprise. Before Miss Soft Rattles could even speak, she was suddenly slapped, leaving her rivals in shock. Luo told him that he needed to be more confident in herself and not relying on the opinions of others to validate her beauty. This unexpected move left the creature subtly intrigued. It also left the presenter Enoch perplexed, and he requested the director to replay the scene. Everyone was astonished that a level 1 human dared to slap a deadly feral-level creature. The clever guy was certain that Lu Yao was about to be destroyed, especially since the girl in question usually cared so much about what others thought. But, in an unexpected twist, the one who was slapped was blushing like a tomato and acting shy. My soft shippers were all like, "What just happened?" Although the handsome boy was calm and fearless, her heart was racing because of his mega evil vibes. While living with the powerful entity, Lu Yao unlocked an ability called the Source of Ultimate Evil, which he quickly understood that this was not a normal Tuesday. This power meant that he would always be on the authorities' radar, with the ability to control anyone he touched for 10 minutes a day and order them to do whatever he wanted. Upon reading this, the young man realized that he had just hypnotized the powerful entity, and she was completely impressed by how epic the boy in front of her looked. Suddenly, she wanted to literally devour him. Thanks to the skill, the kidnapper's face. They were in a hospice facility. Our protagonist was terminally ill and had a maximum of only 60 days to live. The thief cursed his bad entity went into full obsession mode. She ran towards our hero, ready to swallow him whole, but he told her, "Nah, you're a complete weirdo, just like the others." 2. Even so, the boy knew that none of the girls would let the others have him. Mesoft Reds blocked the axe that was coming at him, but she was thrown aside by the strong woman, who wanted to keep the boy for herself. The spider decided to let her rivals tear each other apart while she enjoyed the main course all alone, until he pointed out that the other 2 might have something to say about that. Miss Bastabon was preparing to launch Mesoft Reds against the demon spider to save the day, and as she was being thrown, our hero thought, "Wow, 3 fierce creatures fighting over me." But he knew that none of these affections were genuine. Lu realized that choosing one would cause the other 2 to unite against him, and that would be his end. His chances of survival wouldn't improve if he let them fight and then faced the winner, who was far stronger than him. Just then, the fight was interrupted by someone complaining about how difficult it was to choose. Noah said that she didn't like mixing violence and romance. The first contestant wanted answers, and so did the second. So, the boy explained that fighting wasn't the way to win his heart. They all started to worry, thinking he was going to leave, but he said, "No, I just need to think before I decide." He then suggested spending time with each of them to create a luck. He then lamented choosing the wrong Reen and demanded to know about the precious item he was concealing. At that moment, when the kidnapper's attention was diverted, Bond, hoping that it would save him from certain death, he promised to choose a girl after that time of getting closer. He decided to be clever and to false promises, like being a loyal husband and a wonderful father. He even declared that if this love ultimately led to his demise, he would accept it. Hearing this, the woman, deeply moved by his words, firmly vowed to prove that she alone was worthy of ending his life. With only 50 minutes remaining in the program, ended, and a strange creature was dining alone in the cemetery. Suddenly, it turned around and was struck on the head. The abomination was enraged that a human would dare to strike her. She lunged to kill him, but he summoned a ferocious creature from thin air to defend himself from the attacker. And so, the monster found itself in a difficult predicament. It began to weep, bargain, and argue, but the woman simply plunged her hand into its skull, forcing him to fight, flee, and retreat. Red Lips then gifted the boy a rare blue item, the eye of a golem, which came from a powerful monster. The woman wanted to talk about marriage and other things. The young man responded, "Yes, we have a lot to talk about." As he took her by the shoulder and looked into her eyes, the suggestion was activated once more. The woman said she hated being looked at like that because it made her unable to decide the correct way to kill, since her true nature was pure, murderous instinct. Our hero began praising how epic Red Lips was, saying that he would risk everything for her. Then he left her. For a split second, the young man grabbed a pillow and hurled it at his face. He then pounced on him, seized the arm holding the weapon, and punched him. Confused by saying that the program was like a wall between them, he explained that the show was only using their drama to increase viewership and that she should rebel. The creature nodded, and his charm worked flawlessly. Suddenly, the boy feigned fear, pointed at a creature, and said it gave him the creeps. Red Lips. Lips rushed to take care of her. Seeing that the game was rigged, our hero decided to turn the situation around completely. With less than half an hour remaining, he moved on to the 44. Next girl. His card showed that he still had his complete half, and all of her stats were low. Afterwards, the ferocious monster was torn apart by the true beast. The cruel one was deep in thought about the love interest she wanted to crush. Then, the skills timer ran out. As soon as the girl regained her senses, she adopted a playful air. According to the system, the shaman realized that she was no longer under his spell. He then decided. He charmed the second contestant, who thought she had been drugged, and she ended up completely in love with the hero. He told her that he was simply reflecting her own feelings back to her. The spider hugged the human, warning him that if he chose any other rival, he would be done for, and that choosing her was the right decision because she would take care of him. She even threatened to cut him open if he dared to reject her, so he accepted, but mentioned that there were certain problems. This left the spider confused, and our hero reminded her of the promise she made, to protect him if he became her partner. The demon confirmed that this was her duty. He stated that, square in the face, the protagonist seized the kidnapper's arm, broke it over his shoulder, and as the man screamed in agony, hoisted him into the air. The show didn't care about his happiness, and only wanted to trap him. He then decided to use his power to declare that the game should be cancelled. At that moment, an enraged presence lunged at him, incensed by his trickery. The spider was intrigued by Red Lips' fury. Luo lied, saying that she had come to eliminate him because he had rejected her. Red Lips charged forward with murderous intent, but a projectile appeared out of nowhere, forcing her to block it and halt her attack. She recognized the technique as the spider's doing. She was surprised to see her rival defending the manipulator. Luo asked to calm down and let him pass. Red Lips was furious that the spider was blocking her path. She then summoned her weapon to eliminate them both. At that moment, a storm of web fluids erupted, immobilizing her instantly. Rage consumed her so completely that she used her blade to cut the cases, cobwebs, and even severing his own arms to free himself. He advanced through the spider's projectiles, even managing to cut off one of its extremities. The purple spider was stunned by this. He asked her if she was really going to continue with that attitude, and the furious spider demanded that the manipulator be handed over to her. The demon said that she was not afraid, and so the two ferocious creatures collided with everything around them. There were 5 minutes left for the program to end. Meanwhile, our hero watched from afar, feeling powerless to intervene. Then, someone called out to him. The third one finally appeared, Miss Bastavam, and slammed him against the ground. The thief called the pajama-clad hero a liar, but the hero confirmed that the thief's days were numbered, mentioning how he had. She was upset that she had waited so long only to find him accompanied by his rivals. She asked him if he was a liar. Before he could, in response, his arm was severed. Our hero was cornered against the cemetery with barely a tenth of his health remaining, desperately trying to stop the bleeding. The situation looked dire for him. He had lost nearly all of his health and a significant portion of his SP. The butcher remarked that the young man reminded her of someone she knew before she became a demon. She recounted that, back then, no one paid her any attention because of her appearance, until one day she encountered a guy who valued her personality and made her feel comfortable for the first time. Then, he asked her to deliver a package filled with very suspicious items. The butcher recalled how she ended up running for her life, pursued by armed men. When she arrived at her destination, she overheard someone shout that she was a beast. Faye was about to bite the dust. The guy's friends started making fun of her, even though they were secretly grateful that she had brought them some loot. Incredible. Hearing that, he burst into tears. The guy started saying that it was incredibly easy to manipulate the butcher and gain her loyalty with a little bit of kindness. With all the taunts and insults, the girl couldn't take it anymore, so she stormed into the bar and started knocking everyone down one by one in an attack of absolute fury. Returning to the present, she explained that the charming boy she had eliminated earlier reminded her a lot of the seducer she had wasted 8 minutes of his most valuable time. He took out the mysterious object and asked if that was the reason they were pursuing him. The man tried, in front of her. Then she asked if she could eliminate him too. At that moment, Luo pointed out that touching his missing arm was a huge no-no. And before she understood, his power activated. It was time to offer a few words of suggestion. He asked the demon if she even knew her own name, leaving her very intrigued. He pointed out that despite having played this game countless times, she was always stuck with the same pathetic title, and that everyone in her past and present life, past and present, only saw her as a tool. Seeing her hesitate about her next move, the boy told her that she should destroy this game and the freether, spectators who mocked her, along with everyone who had imposed that ridiculous title on her instead of her real name. With that, the demon let out a ferocious roar. Everyone, including her rivals, went on high alert. Mizaban charged toward the other two. With 30 seconds left on the clock, the 3 ferocious creatures fought with everything they had. With 10 seconds remaining, our hero began to lose life due to the bleeding. Then, he grabbed the leg of the demon, along with the arm of the huge ogre and its weapon, the fearsome Ripper. Only then did the 3 guests notice him. And so, the silver-tongued one bid farewell as he entered imminent death mode at the end of the show, earning even more admiration from the crowd. Mysterious fourth entity. After such a crushing defeat, the butcher recalled all the times she had participated in the show. She also remembered the words, to recover it, but the young man opened it, hoping to obtain a healthy body. Then something strange happened. The thief watched in disbelief as our hero, from the manipulator, who said he never let her do what she really wanted. Back on stage, the presenter was surprised that the experienced contestants being defeated so easily by a novice discouraged the audience, who had paid to see real action. The host reminded them that their poor performance would be a huge stain on their records, but before he could finish his sentence, a chain shot out. The huge blade brushed past the presenter, and immediately the giant butcher made her triumphant entrance. Facing her 2 rivals, she declared that the show had to be cancelled. Seeing that the audience loved the drama, the presenter decided to play along. The human lightbulb tried to argue that they shouldn't ruin the game, or they would lose their chance to find love. Then a 4th presence appeared, fed up with the noise. They fell silent instantly. His arrival left the presenter speechless. It was none other than Miss Pereza, making her surprise entrance. She said she hated crowds and gave them 10 seconds to disperse. Everyone was confused, but they understood quickly when she started counting down. In the blink of an eye, the entire crowd ran for their lives, leaving the presenter alone with the 4 contestants. When asked what she wanted, the newcomer demanded information about the male candidate. The presenter tried to say that he was very weak, but faced with an even darker look, he immediately gave in, and Lu Yao was transforming into a traverse. Seeing this, the guy panicked, saying that Lao had brought about his own downfall. Lu kicked him in the face, saying, delivered the information on his knees. The hero's story left her quite impressed, and with that, she urged the other contestants to get back to work sooner, to withdraw. Redley was intrigued by the powerful demon's interest in the human. Just then, the gigantic blade rose up. When Yu asked if she really planned to rebel against the game, the Grand Dame declared, I am unstoppable. Meanwhile, in the main city marked in red, known as the City of Extreme Evil, the salesman began lamenting his misfortune, complaining about ending up in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then he got scared when a random guy asked if he wanted to be eaten. That guy turned out to be a monster with an extremely long neck. The boy quickly returned to the work claiming he was just talking to himself. With that, the long-necked creature decided to continue on its way, muttering that the city only allowed them to devour those who broke the rules. The boy, still frightened, wished he could be like those elite players, even though he knew that even the best guild-sponsored traversers couldn't overcome such a fierce trial. But he was wrong. The blonde was in complete shock when someone actually completed a top-tier trial. After that, the system congratulated our hero for completing the fierce dungeon in style, giving him 5 points, a purple chest, 2 attribute points, and 2 extra levels. And because the rookie accomplished such a feat, the system awarded him 10 points. The kidnapper, he obtained an item that transported him straight to Allison Borderland, where he was immediately registered as number 1 on the extremely evil list, and that he was already a goner. He grabbed the gun and, under pressure, demanded answers about the Otherworld account, pointing it at the man's head. The kidnapper confessed of spirit and the option to return home or explore the Red City for a while. Since he was number 1 on the villain list, the protagonist appeared inside the main city of Red Name. Seeing that his right arm was restored, he realized that all damage sustained during the trial was healed at the end. While observing the extremely wicked city, he noticed it felt like the first safe zone, so he decided to inspect the purple chest. Inside, he discovered a skill, abode called Demon's Descent, which allowed the user to enter Berserker mode while sacrificing health and SP. The protagonist immediately recognized that it was a high-risk, high-reward power. Nevertheless, he decided to learn it because power is power. Next, he examined the rest of his inventory, beginning with the Ripper of Fierceness, which constantly drained his health but granted him a fierce aura and increased his firepower with each enemy he defeated. These effects, they left our hero feeling impressed. Then, Lu Yao decided to carefully review his status window before summoning the Fierce Ripper, and upon taking hold of it, he noticed immediately how his health began to decline. Still, the weapon elevated his power ranking from beginner to strong. Seeing just how effective it was, he decided to combine using it with health potions to make it even more efficient. It was then that one of the long-tongued monsters spotted him. This one was shocked, seeing a human wielding the aura of fierceness. He felt overwhelmed by the young man's terrifying presence, so he apologized for being rude and fled. Alright. The world changed after the meteor shower of 2050. Some people gained the power to travel to other dimensions to overcome trials, saying that he was in a hurry, as if he were late for dinner. Seeing that, the protagonist stowed his weapon to avoid any further trouble. At that moment, he called out to him, another player who suggested forming a team, since they were both there to earn evil points. Luya immediately recognized him as the salesman from before. Upon realizing that the boy was the protagonist, the swindler became enraged, blaming him for being sent to the city of Red Name. The hero apologized, saying that it wasn't his intention and that he was just a beginner. But the blonde was skeptical, because a beginner would never be able to trigger a 6-star alarm. Even so, the young man insisted that he didn't understand anything, that everything happened too quickly, and said he was looking for someone who could explain that world to him. The salesman agreed to tell him everything. He explained that this world had 4 zone levels: paper, average, strong, and fierce, and that the trials randomly teleported them to a point within that dimension. Safe zones offered complete protection to travelers, allowing them to respawn without any consequences after death. The paper zones contained weak monsters and presented a low risk, with only a minor loss of equipment upon death. Average zones had stronger creatures that dropped valuable green equipment when defeated, but you would lose your entire inventory if you fell there. Strong zones contained even more powerful monsters that dropped invaluable blue equipment, but dying there caused serious mental damage. Returning to Earth when they were finished, victorious travelers received incredible rewards, such as powerful weapons or universal medicines. That's why the blonde man warned the protagonist to choose his trials carefully. Hold on tight, because things are about to get intense. Those who managed to overcome difficult level tests were overcome by sacrificing a lot to execute the correct strategies. Luo then asked the vendor about the final level. He became nervous, explaining that the fierce zones were places where the system's safety net simply didn't exist, and even though there were items there, epic purple items, dying meant the end of the game, literally. In addition, they were blocked areas with no access for players. The vendor said, "It can't be," when he heard that someone had cleared a fierce dungeon. The protagonist was extremely interested. They told him to relax regarding the final level, because the city with the red name was in a danger zone, which meant that losing there implied a huge risk. That is, your life is in line, but they could return to the safe zone by completing tasks to reduce their evil points. Then they asked the rookie what his score was. The boy, he checked and said, "Oh, I have a ton of points." It turned out his super evil points were off the charts. The atmosphere in the super city of evil was pure, infinite chaos. The humans sent there were of the lowest rank, but they could still complete tasks to buy their way out. Then, a monster in front. To the hero said, "Do you want to come in?" The boy replied, "No, I'm fine." But suddenly, a monstrous hand, pierced right through him. The mummy said, "If you come near." But normal people became jealous and started attacking these travelers, wanting the secrets of the parallel worlds. It was discovered that otherworldly, my store, you have to buy something. The blonde explained that the monster NPCs in the city were anti-human, so they needed to keep a low profile. Meanwhile, explained the need to remain unnoticed, only to realize that his new companion had disappeared. Luo eventually located a shop. His friend. He said to him, "Brother, are you crazy?" He even warned him to leave before a monster spotted him, but, to his surprise, the protagonist ignored him and entered the monster's shop. Inside, he was on high alert. The merchant's attitude changed upon seeing a human customer. Our hero said, "I'm looking for healing potions." Healing. The seller agreed to sell them to him, but for 500 points. However, upon checking the labels, the protagonist said, "Hey, this says 50 points here." The monster replied, "Humans pay 10 times more. Accept it." And he laughed, saying that the boy had no way out. Then, the human closed the door with, "Key." With a smile, he said, "It seems you're the one who's trapped." The green creature was confused until it began to scream in pain as it was split in two. He was terrified by the ferocious aura, completely paralyzed as the boy approached him. Luo Yao radiated a fierce, almost divine vibe. The monster, scared to death, out of fear, he argued that the city lord would punish the human for killing a merchant. The young man found this interesting, thinking that the lord wouldn't. Like the seller's abusive price. The monster, trying to defend itself, saw the leaves approaching. The human demanded all the objects at 1/10 of the options. Accounts, appearing as marks, teleported their holders to other worlds, and this was the key to interdimensional travel. Those who possessed these, price. The reindeer had no choice but to accept. And so, the young man left the store with new equipment. Luo Yao was certain that everything had been in self-defense. I was thrilled. He managed to snag a bunch of super cheap potions. On top of that, he acquired the blue Spectre cloak equipment, which concealed his presence from creatures in average and weak zones, and it even cast a smokescreen for a mere 800 points. He still had 4,500 points remaining, and so he ventured further and further into that other world. Meanwhile, back on Earth, in a store where a giant was buying groceries, the huge guy glanced at the candy, grabbed one, and his mark began to glow. On his way back, he received a message. The guy was trying to explain that he wanted to avoid the three elders and spend time with his daughter, but when she heard that someone had passed a particularly difficult level test, Miawa, who had conquered the challenging level of the death train, he immediately became serious. Meanwhile, the blonde, completely taken aback, asked the protagonist how he had managed to acquire enough points to purchase the expensive spectrum layer. He then explained that the store clerk had been incredibly generous and given him a discount. Yeah, hard to believe, right? The master swindler had the little kid buy him an item for 500 points. This led the seller to believe that he had found a super rich guy that he could take advantage of, so he suggested forming a team sometime in the future. Our hero, being the good customer he is, said, "No, I'm not interested." But Jend insisted, "No." Powers were called traverses. There were only a few seconds remaining. Then, the door burst open. The assault team moved in to subdue the attacker, and, "Friend, you would be more than just a companion." Then he even begged him to form a father-son bond, literally getting down on his knees. The protagonist was left, surprised by his shamelessness, but finding it amusing, he proposed that they become friends. The two engaged in an epic handshake, officially becoming colleagues. Jin Dali logged off and told the protagonist to contact him if he needed anything, before departing. Meanwhile, our hero was curious about this new method of communication between travelers. Then, the system notified him that he would soon be sent back to the real world. And so, he logged out and returned to Earth. His next challenge was scheduled for the same time the following day. Checking the time, Luo realized that every minute in the real world was equivalent to 10 minutes in the other world. He took out his health potion and was surprised to see that he could bring it into the real world. So, He drank it down and threw the empty bottle, which vanished into thin air. Then he walked past the orphanage, which was very lively that night, but he didn't pay much attention and went straight to the hospital. The orphans were overjoyed to see their older brother Li with presents, asking him if he was happy with how his life was going. JN replied, "I will be soon." The curious children listened as he told them he had found a new, rich dad. They laughed, saying, "He always tries that, and it never works out for him." JN scolded them, saying that money was important because he had to take care of them. Then, he saw a familiar face. Rescue Reen. But, surprise, it was the kidnapper who was the one who needed rescuing. Luya had 1 minute remaining before teleporting to the other. Familiar across the street, our protagonist in pajamas. The nurse said they were worried because he had disappeared, so she explained that he had only gone out for a short walk, as his illness was incurable and time was running out. With that thought, he cheerfully returned to his room. The nurses felt sorry for the handsome boy, because despite his energy, he was battling an unknown illness. Meanwhile, our hero pondered all the health and mana potions he had consumed, wondering if they might be of any use to him. He also figured that the longer he remained ill, the more hallucinations he would experience. Upon opening the door, he was shocked to see an impressive figure with pointed ears and horns sitting on his bed. Despite the unbelievable physique and exaggerated appearance before him, the patient remained calm. The demon was even playing on his console. The young man assumed it was just another hallucination brought on by his illness. He opened the drawer and took some pills. It was the first time that he was hallucinating so intensely that he saw a demon in his bed, playing Sven Dadley Sense, and losing on the first level. After failing, Slot was very upset. Young man took his pills, thinking the hallucination would disappear soon. Then, the demon shoved the console in his face, challenging him to beat the level that she couldn't. But, to his surprise, she was poked several times in the chest. This irritated her immensely. The protagonist thought that his hallucinations world. The kidnapper explained that he could only enter that world with the clothes he was wearing, and that time passed extremely quickly inside. The hero in pajamas were so real that he could feel them. The demon was furious at this new and chaotic source of annoyance. Just as he began to pry into her affairs, as horns blared, a sudden wind swept through the hospital, howling through the hallways. The nurses grew worried as everything went dark. Slot gave him 3 seconds to stop being a times creep asterisk, but she was so angry that she didn't even finish counting down. Before he could attack her, the young man begged for mercy, saying that everything was because of the console, begging for a chance to fix it. Shortly after, the lights came back on. The nurse went to check on the patient, who told her to wait outside because he was as naked as the day he was born. Boom. Just like that, our protagonist completely defeated Slot in the game. Seeing his ghost-like avatar, she joked that the game developer should be fed to the Times server asterisk, but he started to tease her, saying that his in-game appearance was even stranger, and he explained that, with few exceptions, humans tend to perceive the unknown as frightening rather than beautiful. He immediately recognized the show's 4th participant, Miss Slot, who was impressed by his steely nerves, saying that was why he had survived the source of evil, unlike the others. He was surprised to realize that all the skills were still alive. Slot explained that he was still in Phase 1, without any equipment, and that he had to overcome deadly dungeons solo. Disappointed because the weapon would have been useful, but he figured he would have some time, since the captured kidnapper would be of interest to the government and the 3. He appeared in the real world to warn him about his reckless trials, promising that they would meet again. Lu Yao was intrigued by the source of the evil, and thinking it might be connected to his illness, he inquired whether all members of his species could jump between realities. She assured him that he was a special case and needed to leave quickly to avoid some important figures. She also mentioned that he would learn more about his power over time before telling him to survive and letting her go. This realization struck him, and he knew he had to keep moving forward. He also wondered if the console had been left there on purpose. The system described it as a game where owners fought to defeat the final boss, who was capable of summoning them. That bothered him, because he had helped quite a bit. The text detailed the adventurer's tasks in this difficult level trial that our hero had entered. Level 3. If he won, he would obtain a blue chest, but he would lose all his skills and items. With that outcome, the young man was finally free to enjoy the game. Activating anonymous mode for his first multiplayer experience, our hero arrived at the gates, carrying his employee handbook as he entered the plaza just before time ran out. After glancing through the book, he opened the door just as the clock struck 0. He found himself surrounded by other, more experienced travelers, equipped with more elegant gear. He closed the door behind him and tried to blend in with the others. Seeing that he was level 3, one player said they were doomed to lose, but another commented, "Elders." As the seconds ticked by, he recalled that the kidnapper had said the first test was safe, but the terminally ill man decided, "Nah, I'm not going to." That novices often joined up with professionals. Just then, one of the pros burst into the room. It was Hangan, level 10, of the Dragoner Guild, also known as the Hojamati. Told his companions not to slow him down. One criticized him for turning off anonymous mode, but another said it was his right as a member. The mighty Dragon Jewel Mahdi stated that he had already passed that test before and told them to listen to him if they wanted to win. They all agreed to follow his leadership, while he talked about how average players feared these dungeons. Then, something caught his attention. The level 10 player pointed at the level 3 area. Our protagonist was confused. The tall player asked him about his level. Since beginners were supposed to go to the paper level tests, he explained. It must be bad luck. Jungkoon agreed to let him join, but told him not to die. And just when our hero thought the mission would be a piece of cake, the most valuable weapon of a human was shot directly in the head. Everyone was horrified to see the glasses shatter as their powerful wearer fell to the ground. The shooter then welcomed the allied Pren Express travelers, stating that he had done them a favor by eliminating the latecomer, who was now dead. He broke the rules due to his tardiness. With that, the old man welcomed his new employees with open arms. Everyone was shocked to see how a level 10 player fell with a single blow. The old man assured them that, according to the manual, employees could not rebel against the manager, and that they were free to. Now he has to survive this dark web reality show. That night, the target was resting peacefully in Hospital 13. They were instructed to exit without waste my last days worrying. He wanted to explore unknown realities. With that thought, he was finally ready. When the profession, read it whenever they wished. This made our hero understand that the manager's authority was absolute and that he could eliminate any player with impunity. Ease. The manager then told his team that they had 3 deliveries to complete. The blue ones were easy and the red ones were difficult. They just needed to complete 3 deliveries in order to pass the test. And so, the main mission began. One of the players, Amelie, took a red order, thinking it would be a piece of cake, but surprise, the mission was to slap a strong, high-level boss named Sherrod Tim Wolf. Everyone laughed when she refused to do something so ridiculous, but she was immediately shocked when she was instantly defeated. The magic made it clear that they couldn't back out of the deliveries. They had to accept them and fulfill them. The manager explained that he hated those who broke the rules. He promised not to harm them if they correctly completed their work before officially starting the game and mentioning a time limit. The players were terrified of the red sheets because they represented impossible missions. It was Tasco who had received a blue sheet, tasking him with delivering dinner to room 306. With the package in hand, he decided to be the first to act and ran towards the exits. The other players began to look at each other, because if the rules only stated that you had to complete the mission you accepted, it meant that others could steal your tasks. At that moment, Chunla's fanboy demanded. The system detected him, created his character, and dropped him into the public area. Thus, the traveler known as Luya made his grand entrance with his character already configured. To see our hero's notebook, Luo immediately understood that it was one of those moments where several people take advantage of the rookie. One of them said that, as the beginner had nothing to lose, while another suggested making a trade, which genuinely piqued the protagonist's interest. He recalled that when he spoke with Slot, he inquired whether evil points could be shared to access easier trials. She confirmed that it was possible, but also told him that it would make the trials more difficult for those with whom he shared points, and that he, as the source of evil, would face even tougher challenges. He was also surprised by how little he seemed affected by such an unfair reality. Returning to the present, he agreed to exchange points with the others and opened his notebook, revealing a red leaf. The hunters were disappointed and confused by this. Our hero continued to browse through the notebook, leaving them even more disconcerted as they saw, who had a ton of orders, and when he showed the last page, he reiterated that he was willing to trade. Everyone was perplexed by his notebook, completely red. When he asked again if anyone wanted to trade, the 3 players backed away, saying they didn't want to anymore. Everyone started to distance themselves from him, fearing his bad luck. Still, the loneliness didn't bother him. Just then, applause was heard. The manager congratulated him for being the first to have 3 red orders, but said it was bad luck because he was still too weak. Lu decided to ask him a question. The manager remained firm, but accepted. He was able to see his character card, and Lu Yao began to look around. The card was like a status window, displaying his statistics and progress in the trial. To answer only one. The young man pointed out how the old man was indirectly trying to get the players to choose easy orders and leave the difficult ones behind, which meant there would be something to lose if anyone managed to complete 3 red orders. This intrigued the old man, who then explained that completing 3 difficult missions would put him in a precarious situation, which is why he was happy to see them in the hands of a weakling. The old man was impressed by his combination of talent and ego. He confirmed that the more difficult the task, the greater the reward, and asked if he had any further questions, but the protagonist declined, saying he didn't want to end up like the others, since he was only allowed to ask 1 question. This pleased the old man, as he believed he had uncovered the protagonist's plan. Still, he wasn't surprised, considering he was the one who survived the cutthroat dating show. As he walked out, he heard a voice, belonging to a bald man, shouting, who possessed 3 blue request slips and wanted to trade them. The giant stated that there was no way anyone could survive 3 red-level requests, and he was prepared to snatch them away to ensure his own safety. Our hero immediately went on high alert. It turned out to be a level 15 hidden warrior, Ninjawa. He recognized that name, a legend known for overcoming difficult trials. The blonde had mentioned him previously. The giant noticed that the young man recognized him and inquired what he intended to do. Lu pulled out his notebook as if he were going to negotiate, but surprise, he tore off the red request slip, claiming the mission for himself. He began to walk away. Trial. The system explained to him what each category represented on the card. It also showed him his inventory column for items and abilities, explaining that he could carry, claiming it had been an accident. Then they demanded that he stop. Miyajua was seething with fury, charging towards the one who dared to. Mocking him and ready to teach him a lesson, the young man summoned his sword, leaving Moniaba utterly bewildered. Lu then asked him what he intended to teach, times him asterisk. The giant chuckled and claimed he only wanted to prove he could negotiate even with someone so powerful, but in reality, he was scared to death of Lu's weapon. Our hero played along, knowing the veteran was terrified of his giant scissors, and they both laughed while thinking the worst of each other. They parted ways. The level 15 warrior decided to seek out another red blade wielder for a greater reward. But first, he needed to deal with the annoyances around him. He stated that even though the trial was difficult, the players were quite brave for even approaching him in the first place. One said that the 3 elders' will was absolute, and taking down a level 15 warrior would be even better. He charged, only to be grabbed by the face. To everyone's surprise, Miyaba held the hunter in the air, pointing out his weaknesses before crushing his skull with his grip. And as the guy began to fade, someone pointed out that he possessed the muscle dominator power. The giant confirmed this by jumping from above to attack his opponent and take their red orbs. Meanwhile, Luo was at school, returning a lost doll to the girl. 30 items in his backpack to sell or exchange in the public area. Then, he became distracted when he overheard someone promoting a green team of a strong level, thinking he simply had to return a lost item. The doll's description, however, was extremely suspicious. Our hero. He commented on how unprofessional Yalos Pring was, noting that the doll wasn't packaged at all and had a terrible description. When he arrived at the Yalos, at the address, he wondered if he was at the home of a deranged person. He rang the doorbell, announcing that he was there to deliver something. Luo waited silently for a response, only to receive a terrifying scream that chilled him to the bone. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a hunter was supposed to deliver food and was thanked for his services, but he was confused to find himself tied up, even though he had completed the task. The wolf in sheep's clothing said that the amount he brought wasn't enough, and that adding his flesh to the meal would truly complete it. Simultaneously, another hunter was supposed to deliver temple bells to Chang Temple and received thanks because of the monk, but the numerous weapons pointed at her made her very curious about that kind of gratitude. Meanwhile, the young man was gulping down a potion as he ran for his life, fleeing from the crazy woman. Unable to contact the outside world, she was determined to end his life. Then he spotted a door ahead and ran to open it. Just before he could be stabbed in the back, he managed to slam the door shut just in time. While the woman screamed for Siasa, watching her bang on the door like a maniac, he realized he needed a plan to save himself before she called the poison sword, but the crowd was hesitant, saying that it exploded during the parallel tests and that no one would sell green equipment for the penalty of finally broke through. The young man was surprised to see that the room he had entered was different from the rest of the terrifying house. The door was beginning to give way under the assault, little by little. Then, he noticed 8 childlike drawings that seemed to be a gift from a daughter to her mother. He turned around and saw a calendar with days marked off since the girl's disappearance. As he flipped through the pages, he discovered that the little girl had been missing for a very long time, and just as he got to a specific month, something yellow appeared and fell out of the calendar. It was a business card that read that Pren Express could get you anything you wanted. Our hero found it so absurd that he laughed, thinking it was completely fake. Just then, a knife pierced the door. Lu Yao understood that he had to calm her down in order to properly hand over the doll, so he checked inside the closet and decided to try that. Something crazy. At that moment, the mother burst into the room, but her fury vanished when she saw what was before her. The villain had transformed into a fanboy pretending to be the woman's long-lost daughter. The woman, believing that this was her daughter, now grown, rushed to embrace her, overjoyed that she was still alive. Still, even so, the young man insisted that it wasn't true. He gently took the knife from her hand and stabbed himself in the abdomen, leaving her in utter disbelief. Before any of this began, a figure had approached the girl. She turned around and was completely terrified. Moments later, blood covered the grass and the seller, displaying the sword and other items, asserted that they originated from parallel worlds. He stated that there were 4 levels of testing: paper, parallel, doll. That very same day, when the mother went to look for her daughter, she was horrified to find only a pool of blood. Now, cradled in the arms of a devastated mother, our hero used his words to restore some sanity to her. Some time ago, the woman was greeted by Yalos Print Express. The manager told her they could deliver anything she desired, so the woman asked if they had seen her daughter, handing over a photo and a description. To her surprise, he said that he had seen her, and she desperately begged him for more information. The man told her that she would have to pay a price for his delivery services. The woman instantly knelt down, begging to get her little girl back. With that, the entity activated its powers, explaining to her that she would have to go insane to get her daughter back soon, assuring her that she had great potential for their business. Returning to the present, the woman, miserable, begged again. Luo was surprised to see that she was resisting his charm powers. The woman said that her daughter had disappeared when she woke up, so she preferred to remain asleep. Our hero felt pity for her sorrowful state, and while he was caught up in her grief, the mother called out to him. At first, he thought it was his daughter, but when he realized it was an adult man pretending to be her, she became extremely angry. Luo congratulated her on breaking free from her madness, telling her that she was denying the fact that she had awakened a long time ago. This left her completely bewildered. He explained that his manager had sent him to Strong and the as yet unreached Fierce, which was where the blue and green teams were formed. The liar even insisted that his weapon had been wielded by an extremely evil, fat man from the West. Deliver the doll to her, and asked her to consider what that implied. The young man pointed out that she could continue to deny it or choose to trust others before. Ask her to take the doll and leave a 5-star review. And with that, our hero completed his first red delivery mission, doubling his rewards in the process. Finals. After that, he decided to leave, but the mother stopped him, asking if her daughter had truly left this world. He responded that she would have to find that out for herself. Shortly after, the curtains finally opened. The mother was determined to go and search for her daughter. At that instant, the figure of the crazed woman crumbled. Picking it up, the manager was disappointed, as he thought it was quite an interesting story, so he decided to move on to the next scene, asking the creature if it agreed. The creature responded with an unsettling sound. Moments later, at the Yellow Spring Fitness Center, a chubby guy was excited to finally receive his weight loss medicine, but upon opening the package, he only found a delicious meal. In the blink of an eye, the gymnast was overcome with hunger. Driven mad by his own appetite, he dove headfirst towards the package, then stood up with his stomach growling loudly. The creature, still hungry, spotted a delivery man. The poor guy ran as fast as he could, but the hunger walker caught up to him, turning him into his next meal. Meanwhile, in the secluded garden, the Chun-Li cosplayer was. The auction commenced at 500 points, and the adventurers began to place their bids. His con was proceeding swimmingly, but just before, horrified, Jade's girlfriend, who had already eliminated 3 players, calmed him down, saying that she only wanted to ask him one question. She wanted to know about love letter, but when he said he had no idea about it, the woman called him useless and cursed him with a death so terrifying it would make even a ghost jump. This resulted in delivery drivers getting bad reviews and dropping like flies. Mia was surprised at how difficult the easy orders were, thinking that he would earn more points with the difficult ones, but he barely got any. The muscular egg had to deliver love to the king of the abyss, which seemed like a joke to him. Then he heard a noise in the bushes and froze, thinking it was a monster. As he approached, he found an adult man, hiding and taking off a dress, which left him totally confused. Only then did the young man realize that he had been discovered and left the bald man, perplexed by how calm he was about it all. Mund noticed the outstanding employee badge above the young man's head, a sign that he had completed a difficult request. Luo explained that his mission was a cosplay contest with the client and that he had won easily. She offered the dress to the man so he could try it on, but he replied, "No, I'll pass." The level 15 player began to think that this rookie, capable of completing a red level order and carrying such a powerful weapon, must have passed a very difficult test, so he suggested that they work together to finish the rest of the tasks. Mund explained that the monsters with bad reviews were chasing other players, so teaming up was the best course of action. Closing the sale, the loudest alarm in the public area blared. The system issued a warning to everyone about a dangerous individual before alerting the Supreme Department of. He even showed his red blade to the hero as a sign of peace and goodwill. He was surprised by the reaction, and Lu Yao decided to show his own. As it turned out, they both had to make a delivery to the King of the Abyss. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden scream. The Hunger Walker was approaching. Upon seeing it, Moon offered to take care of the monster while the hero made the delivery, but to his surprise, the hero didn't accept the plan. Lu Yao stated that there was a way for both of them to escape without losing anything. The bald man was frustrated by how strong all the NPCs in the challenge were, and even more so by not being able to show his secret weapon in front of the hero. M reminded Lu Yao that he could run away first, if he wanted to, as he had his own method for defeating the monster, but Lu Yao was ready. What Baldy saw next left him completely speechless. Then the beast caught his scent, and instead of finding his next meal as he expected, he found a terrifying creature standing over a defeated hunter. The being. Creepy saw the gelatinous monster and thought it wanted to steal his food. The creature, utterly frightened, insisted that wasn't the case and that he would leave immediately. And with that, the high-level creature sped away. In reality, our hero had used his spectral cloak to trick the monster, seem extremely powerful. With the monster out of the picture, Mo was able to move. The bald man decided to befriend the young man, realizing how dangerous it would be, causing a scene and to release the hostages. The attacker, in a very serious manner, threatened to kill the boy if anyone came near. When they asked the law enforcement, the armored figures were inquisitors from the safe zone, belonging to the strong class. Their eyes locked onto Nuo, who was marked as to have him as an enemy, and Lu Yao agreed. He was then confused when she asked him for healing items. A while later, Mount explained to Lu Yao that the blue orders, although supposedly easy, were actually super difficult and always received bad reviews. He mentioned that he once took this test with friends, and they barely escaped a monster-filled chaos. The hero instantly understood that the red orders were the key to achieving a perfect score. And now, with his new companion, he was ready to advance through the missions at full speed. Meanwhile, 3 players were running around confused because even after completing the task, they were being chased by their client, the excavation demon, who had gone crazy. This made them think that the problem was in the package, which turned out to be pesticide. Only then did they spot someone further ahead. Initially, they wanted to run towards him, expecting him to become the monster's new target, but to their surprise, he was running straight towards them. The man dashed right between them, screaming for help. Shortly after, a terrifying shadow wielding giant scissors appeared in front of the hunters, so they rushed into the bushes to hide. The gigantic centipede that spotted the shadow did the same. Thus, when the danger flew past, both the pursuers and the pursued were completely relieved. With that out of the way, the wild chase began again. Mon was impressed by how the monsters ran away from his companion and asked him, number 1 on the list of the extremely evil. He immediately noticed that the guards were watching him. The terrified salesman grabbed his belongings and ran off. He asked if his outfit conveyed some kind of boss mode. Lu downed a health potion and said it was just his natural charm, making the egg wonder if he wasn't even human anymore. Meanwhile, at the Temple of Eternal Life, the bell was handed over, allowing the player to complete her red quest. The woman was impressed by how difficult the red quests were, as it took her a tremendous amount of effort to finish them. But seeing that she was promoted, she thought, well, maybe this is the way to go. Then, Jopin received a call from the 3 Elders Guild, offering him an interesting job. The 3 oddballs weren't surprised that the girl had completed a red-level order all by herself. Jopin inquired about the job and the reward, and the girl said that she would receive a blue item for defeating the bald giant, which made her curious about this conflict with Manhwa. The guild decided to improve the offer by piqued his curiosity even further. He was promised 2 blue items if he found the fierce conqueror of the test, but Zhou Pang rejected the offer, saying that he would only accept murder assignments. One of the elders thought that the strong one would forgive the egg because they were old friends. She confirmed this, saying that he was an old battle companion, and that he owed him too much, so he asked for an increase in his pay. Shortly after, our heroes arrived at the delivery point. Just as the egg was wondering who the client would be, a voice from a tree called them out for invading its territory. The creature glared at them. One of the battleships stomped its foot on the ground, jumped into the air, and left the blonde salesman horrified, as he believed he didn't deserve such punishment from above. Lu Yao was petrified when she saw the monster jump down from its hiding place and land in front of them. The king of the abyss said that he hated the process, humans. Meng explained that they were only there to deliver what he had requested, and then the monster inquired if they had his missing piece, leaving the bald giant completely bewildered. The monster explained that a cunning human had stolen his eye while he was having lunch, and because the human was being protected by a creature of a fierce level, he didn't dare chase after him. The humans couldn't believe it, arguing that a ferocious monster would have no reason to protect a human, but the king of the abyss ignored them and stated that he demanded Yalos Pren Express return his eye to him. He ordered the travelers to hand it over, or they would face his wrath. Just then, they were interrupted. June immediately greeted his old friend. When they inquired about their relationship, Meng explained that it was an ally who would sell her soul for money. The girl took it as a compliment and even asked her friend to let her handle him, since the elders had placed a large bounty on his head. At that moment, our hero attempted to speak and offer a generous deal so that they could resolve their issues, since he was just a rookie. Jopan mentioned that he also had a mission to eliminate the protagonist's team, pointing out that he seemed too experienced to be a beginner. With that, Luya decided to use Plan B, stating that he would take care of the intruders together with the Abyss King. Small scam, and he asked the protagonist if he was the real criminal. Our hero knew that he had to keep quiet and find a safe place, leaving both the monster and the girl perplexed. The Abyss King was confused because the hooded man was supposed to be with the humans. At that moment, he revealed himself and told the monster that they were all friends. The beast was completely bewildered, recalling how that human had started everything by stealing his eye and hiding behind a powerful entity. Seeing him again, the monster exploded with rage and lunged toward him. The 3 elders of the guild thought the young man was crazy for entering the lion's den alone. Luyo pointed out that the monster remained unchanged. Then the king of the abyss noticed that his target was strangely calm. He asked why it had stopped its attack, leading the creature to believe he was trying to provoke it. As the ferocious level woman approached, it decided to befriend the human who had stolen its eye. Everyone was shocked by this. Because of the plot twist, Luya asked the monster to help him defeat the enemy, but the creature responded, "No, we're at a disadvantage, friend." So, our hero decided to show him something epic. The king of the abyss was thrilled to see his eye again, as the hero had promised it to him as a reward for helping him. Luwu said that he would give it to the fierce level entity, who initially refused and even demanded another eye. With that, the monster agreed to help as soon as he recovered his missing part. Boom! The protagonist completed his second red order and was promoted to supervisor. Now he could resist the power of the He now had a 6-star wanted level for being number 1 in the extremely evil ranking, which meant that all the authorities, manager, and his one-shot ability, earning a triple reward at the end of the trial. With that, Lu Yao released his new ally, who immediately launched himself against the humans, leaving them completely terrified. Luya told the king to enjoy himself before departing, while the monster wrecked the guild. Boss, the girl urged the mercenary to take action, seeing how fast the opponent was. But, to her surprise, the guy was trying to sneak away. Silence. Japan said that he would follow the protagonist while the others distracted the monster. Only then did he see a giant figure looming over his head, and he dodged the massive punch at the last second. Still, the girl wasn't unscathed. She called out to her friend and used a blue ability against the attacker. Mo wanted that the assassin would leave Lu Yao alone. This made him realize that such an interest in the protagonist meant that the guy had secret plans, which left her even more curious than before. Immediately after, he disappeared, leaving behind a straw doll. Miyaba became angry because it was a life-saving item. Meanwhile, as he fled, the hero reflected on how his new friend always wanted something from him, and yet always ended up in trouble, withdrawing into the right moment. With that, he accepted the final order, to deliver a laugh to a client named Kai at the Yellow Spring Station. the crazed woman, regained her sanity before defeating the genie. The King of the Abyss was supposed to get his revenge, but unexpected events transpired. This greatly bothered, would be after him to erase his consciousness, which was insane, considering it was supposed to be a safe zone. The salesman pointed to a portal, saying, "The manager," since things were not proceeding according to plan. He was also surprised by the appearance of a supervisor capable of resisting his authority. Nevertheless, the manager insisted that everything had to proceed as he desired, being the true mastermind behind it all, ensuring that the pawns did not deviate too far from the king's will. And so, the commands given to the weaker pieces began to fail, one after another. With each death, a form of dark energy was released. This malevolent energy that the manager absorbed from his useless employees was not sufficient. Then, he turned to the nearby whales and told the entity that he would soon set her free. He revealed that a supervisor, with a high accumulation of malicious points, could enter into intense trials, stating that he needed just a bit more to reach the intense level. Even so, he would have to wait for the young man to fail his final order in order to break free of this trial. Meanwhile, in the forest where the guild members had been eliminated, the monster informed the humans that death was all they could expect from its fury, before turning to the bald giant and praising his strength. Only then did the giant monster experience a strange sensation, which Mo wanted to examine immediately. The King of the Abyss explained that it was due to the yellow spring, as the manager could control the customers who were dissatisfied with their orders, and he still had 2 unfulfilled requests. Mo stated that he was there to fulfill the second request, leaving the monster. Entering that trial would temporarily take him off the authorities' radar. At that moment, the knight readied himself, before unleashing a love-seeker, horrified when the bald giant promised to do everything possible to give him love. The king attempted to protest, but was grabbed by the face. Suddenly, he was drawn into a kiss. And so, the creature was kissed without its consent. Although he was disturbed at first, he ended up accepting the love of the man over 2 meters tall, thus completing the second order and promoting the delivery man to the rank of outstanding employee. Meanwhile, elsewhere on the map, our hero was baffled because the monsters were losing control. Then he turned to the woman following him, telling her that he should have been tracking his allies. The assassin said that she had to defeat him first, so the young man asked her to reveal all the information. She said that she didn't know her friend's true motivation, but since the top 100 players were completely shameless in their pursuit of power, the top 10 were basically monsters with no discernible limits. Lu questioned why she was even bothering to speak with him. She calmly responded that she was there to assess his value. Later, inside the safe zone, the guild members were upset because their levels had been reset. The girl, she contacted her team, who were in the same situation, leaving her extremely irritated. Her assistant tried to argue that the mercenary was still alive and could complete the job, so she should send him a message. But when she did, she was surprised to see that the system no longer recognized them as friends. Enraged by this, she struck the blonde with a powerful blow against the protagonist, who was about to enter the portal, even as the system tried to explain the concept to him, but he refused to. All her strength. Annoyed that an assassin was trying to keep the reward for herself, which made no sense to the girl in green. Well, she was one of the rankers, after all. The captain explained that all the rankers did unscrupulous things to become strong, all while she was contemplating how to explain to the higher-ups that they had failed in their mission. Just then, another member of his team appeared, eager to show him a newly obtained video which showed a player equipped with a lot of elite gear. The one with glasses surmised that he could be the conqueror of the fierce test that the elders were searching for. But Captain didn't care and wanted to use the recording for her report anyway. So, he decided to alert the guild leader about a major discovery found on the Yellow Spring Express line. Meanwhile, back on the test map, Hopping asked the young man to stop running, insisting that he had no bad intentions. Although he had planned to sell him for a hefty reward, he then told him about the bounty that the 3 elders had placed on the head of the conqueror of the fierce trial, and with a leap through the air, landing gracefully in front of our hero, he stated that he might be the one he was looking for. Yoon stated that he could never surpass her in speed. Luo asked what he would do if he were the culprit. The girl responded that she would make him an offer, summoning her weapon, and proposing to divide the reward equally. Our hero was surprised by the appearance of the rifle. Still, Joping clarified that she was a mage before using her, listened, and demanded to enter immediately. And with that powerful slash unleashed a wave of destruction. The salesman watched the impact, intrigued. To his arsenal, caster ability to prepare a spell and fire it at the protagonist. increasing his speed for 10 minutes. Luo was amazed to see, receiving a speed boost. She then asked him if he wasn't curious about her friendly attitude. The girl explained that the players needed to play against the map and cooperate as a team in order to win. Our hero inquired about her true intentions, and she responded that he must want something more than just the promised reward, pointing out that he was the only one capable of defeating the manager in a single blow, given his supervisor status, thus making him the key to clearing this trial. She also added that he should retreat if he ever found himself in danger. With that, the young man finally understood what she meant. Shortly after, we see the hero opening the door. The teary-eyed hero was confused when he saw a small figure crying on the ground. The creature turned towards the humans, who approached him with dark eyes that wept blood. The terrifying being screamed as loudly as it could, which greatly intrigued our hero, Loa, who then decided to cheer him up. But just as he was about to, something unexpected occurred. He was struck by a wave of sadness. Realizing that he was in a difficult situation, he understood that it must be the ability of the entity that was screaming in agony. Lu was taken aback when the monster invited him on a playdate. The creature wanted to explore the protagonist's subconscious, and was surprised to discover that it resembled a hospital. And, surprise, he wasn't the one the authorities were after. Because of his rank on the evildoer list, he was teleported to a fierce dungeon. His new companion had also been through a lot of trouble. Then, it asked to explore the human's fears and pain, and he quickly agreed, leaving for the creature to see them before it transformed into one of them. The monster was terrified by the agonizing memories it witnessed, memories that they shouldn't belong to a human, only for the hero to tell it that those weren't even the worst of them. So he decided to allow it to delve completely into the depths of its past. The childlike creature was running through a maze, dodging terrifying demonic figures. Our hero was excited, finally finding someone who understood his struggles. The monster was totally terrified, falling off the boy's back and running away as if it were competing in a race. Luo yelled, "Come back, I have even cooler things to show you." But the monster ran into a room and slammed the door shut. Door slam. The monster started crying for its mom, thinking it had met a real demon. Then, bam! A loud bang on the door. Our hero, wielding his epic purple sword, burst into the room, asking the terrified creature if its pain was really that unusual. Meanwhile, the manager was fascinated by the sad stories. He loved it when joy turned into torment and agony. The entity then explained that the little creature could dig up miserable memories to take down opponents, but when they checked on the monster, it was Sniper. If he could make a clean shot without hitting the hostage, he replied that the chances were slim. The boy then started provoking him, saying that a purple treasure chest awaited him as a reward for his victory. One's life could truly end if they died in the fierce level dungeon. Completely scared, the creature known as Cray kept screaming, telling the human to get lost, and then threw something at him. Our hero looked. He looked down, bewildered, and saw a familiar toy that reminded him of the one he had given to the crazy woman. It was then he understood that the monster was actually Sasa, the missing daughter of the woman. The name sounded familiar to the creature, who asked about her mother, only to be struck by a brutal headache. The young man rushed to help the girl, who complained of a headache, when suddenly, a thread shot out from her skin. The protagonist attempted to dodge it, but was struck and fell to the ground. Abruptly, more threads erupted from the girl's back. Luo dodged like a ninja, attempting to escape the danger. After avoiding them all, he breathed a sigh of relief that the assassin's buff was still active, but realized he had been tricked. The sword had been sealed. Then, someone entered, saying that they had implanted the threads as a last resort. The manager pointed out that the hero's swords were his greatest strength, so it was better to take them away. He apologized for crying, explaining that Cray's power was too strong, even for him, reminded everyone to maintain proper workplace etiquette. Luo thought it was a surprise inspection, but the old man said he was simply curious about his job. He apologized for the little creature's behavior, explaining that she was just a child, and offered his supervisor a seat. Thus, the protagonist entered the level known as Do Not Disturb If You Die. The objective of this level was to hold hands with the guests of this famous establishment. Old man asked if the young man wanted to chat about anything else, saying he was open to questions. This pleased the manager, since violence was bad for the work environment. Labor. The confused boy asked what the old man meant. Then, he spoke about the most crucial thing in business: demand. He should always make sure that the client needed something. He revealed that he was exploiting the girl, who could see the fears of others and give them shape. Some clients were afraid of gaining weight, such as the walker who chased the owner at night. As for Jade's girlfriend, who loved her appearance, he took away her beauty. She found herself in front of a tall player, Monk, who was extremely upset because he couldn't beat the final boss of the trial since he couldn't obtain 3 red orders. When they asked about the evil stat, our hero said he knew a little about it. Although evil points were annoying for travelers, they were like food for its species, growing stronger each time a player failed a trial. The old man held the baby with his threads, saying that if he killed the crossed player, he could consume that evil energy and advance closer to the ferocious rank. After explaining everything, the entity asked the protagonist if he approved of its methods. He then expressed his curiosity about the horrors the girl witnessed within the human's mind, gently suggesting that she reveal them. Very good, because the story gets intense from here, the manager said. I'm not going to. Preferring to remain ignorant, he claimed that the traveler had said ignorance is bliss. Then he gave the Lu Yao was shocked to realize that his life was truly on the line. Suddenly, the crowd erupted in cheers. Child a weapon, as if saying, here, finish it all. Boom, the world exploded. But the manager was intrigued because the girl used a console as a shield. Luo, being the clever guy he is, he gave the manager some advice while activating a magical item. Be careful with those secret weapons, he warned, using a disposable console to summon Slot. But, PL Twest, the system responded, Slot is on break, leaving him in a tight spot. The manager, secretly, relieved, released his minions, but before they could even touch the boy, most of them were instantly destroyed. Lu Yao was living her best life with the real demonic weapon, which was nothing more than a pillow, but it was effective. Seeing this, the manager said, fine, I'll do it myself. The boy asked the pillow to take care of him, and it shot towards the manager, cutting through his threads like hot butter. The manager was stamped, leaning against the wall, propped up by a pillow. Of all things, the boy freed himself and grabbed his weapon, showing off the demonic object. It was called Eternal Sleep, and it was a pillow that healed and attacked once a day. The console disappeared, but the boy remained calm, knowing he had completed his task. Then, he looked at the small, frightened boy, who was hiding behind a chair. Then, the green threads reappeared. The boy tried to defend himself with his sword, but there were too many of them. So, he ran away. Lu was surprised that the manager was still standing. The old man said, you did well to make me use my secret weapon, which I was saving for. When a new candidate arrived on the scene. With a microphone in hand and bathed in spotlights, that golden figure in his underwear was the show's presenter. The rookie, the evil squad. The threads went out of control and began to emerge from the manager's mouth. Zhou Ping was confused, but assumed it was the power of his new ally. Meanwhile, in the bald giant's fight, his opponent fell face first to the ground and saw green energy emanating from within. Xiao Xiao was terrified as the manager's magic reached her. The manager said, you are worthy of my true power, even if it's a waste. I was ready to demote the boy to level 1. Luya accused him of cheating by losing. Just as the monster was about to unleash its fury, something crashed through the window. A monster, with a knife appeared, using a smaller creature as a shield. He screamed and charged at the manager. The old man, annoyed, tried to stop him with threads, but the monster cut them all and grabbed the boy, pushing the manager away. The woman threw the baby out of harm's way, but was impaled by the threads. Lu recognized her as the grieving mother. He knew he wouldn't last much longer and had to figure out how to complete his final mission. The boy was depressed as always. Then, boom, the hero called out to him, wanting to see him smile. He took his sword, intending to use it on himself, and so our hero carved a smile to complete his third and final task. The winner pointed out that the loser was just a pawn, completely consumed by her emotions, having unleashed a whirlwind of attacks. He then threw his old toy aside, letting it crash against the wall. The entity, he was completely bewildered, as he had become the first traveler to enter such a brutal trial. He was introduced to the viewers as Lu Yao, revealed that, as the boss of that place, even the fiercest creatures would have a hard time defeating him in his own territory, but he admitted that he would have to deal with the annoying task of finding new clients after the fight, a truly bothersome chore. The manager declared that he would absorb the evil points of everyone else, monsters, just as he had done with the crazy woman, and that's how the process began. But just when he was on the verge of becoming an all-powerful being, problems arose. Technicians. The system stated that it couldn't access the clients because there were 2 managers on site, and there could only be 1. This left the entity completely confused because Scene would never smile. The new manager apologized to the previous one before asking if he would like to resign from his position. With his new rank, our hero had access to perks and 5 times the promised rewards. While the system urged him to be the only manager left standing, the man had to, admitting that he had not perceived the protagonist's abilities. Still, he continued to assert that the hero was too weak to wield his power, and that it was almost at the ferocious level. Charging at him, wanting to be the only manager again, our hero agreed with the logic, but stated that the customers should have a say in the matter. The big guy appeared just in time to stop the former manager's strings from controlling him. The entity was not impressed, thinking that this creature was as powerful as he was. He was then struck by a triple ring spell called the Berserk technique, which left from Earth, so he decided to play along, and the audience seemed to absolutely love it. The glowing figure reappeared, announcing that the new guy was full of surprises. Monster in a fit of red fury, leaving the manager baffled by the loss of control over it. The big guy seized the threads and pulled them towards himself, executing a powerful move that allowed him to hurl the old manager away, as the protagonist silently observed. The creature then approached the entity to strike her in the face, sending her crashing against the wall at a high velocity. Japan was impressed by the beginner's power and asked to become friends with him. Luo immediately accepted. The manager quickly got up, declaring that strength alone was not enough to defeat him, only to be grabbed from behind. He was furious, as even Jade's girlfriend had turned against him. Then, she instructed the officer to proceed. At that moment, Miyajua walked towards the old manager. The hero was confused by Pong calling her an officer. Pong explained that it could be due to his forbidden move, the most powerful one known amongst travelers, and then implored the hero to avert his gaze. The monster inquired about the human's destination. He elaborated that his power was muscle manipulation, enabling him to strengthen any muscle at will, with the resulting strength, depending on the muscle in question. Upon being asked about the strongest human muscle, the monster was horrified to realize it was the tongue, which, according to its wielder, had destroyed everyone he had encountered. Because the man cherished his body, one particular muscle received an enormous boost, wildly, before shouting out the names of the show's sponsors. Luo listened carefully, thinking it was some kind of dating program. He remembered, growing in power alongside the skill itself, and that muscle was none other than the tongue. Through this mechanism, the giant man's tongue became more long and gained a slowing effect, along with good penetration. Jade's girlfriend testified that the farmer's tongue was truly delicious, and the manager tried to negotiate for his life, only to be met with a barrage of licks. This left the other 2 humans feeling quite disgusted. The aggressor then began to try out different positions, which horrified the hero. Japan commented that this ridiculous attack was like a 70 finisher. This term seemed completely new to the young man, so she explained that it was a move that could easily eliminate 70% of the life of any target, but with several strange conditions to execute the exchange. According to her, Mund was now using his finisher, which could used only once per test. Just then, the guy gave it his final lick, causing the old manager to let out one last scream, like a cat being given a bath. Lupin commented on how annoying it must be to fight against the licker, saying it was too embarrassing, even for the 3 elders. With the manager's dramatic exit, the mission was completed, allowing the humans to return to the test scene in 60 seconds, like a microwave countdown timer. With everything in order, they were ready to attend to the French request, urging the hero not to pick up any bad habits from the third one, who was a bit unpredictable, that he had been a real heartthrob back on Earth, but his illness ended up cutting off all of his romantic pursuits. The presenter was very curious about considering him more trustworthy than man. Zhang inquired about the wound on his mouth. He was taken aback upon hearing he had done it to make a child smile, just like a superhero with a bizarre origin story. Meanwhile, the crazed woman was paralyzed, completely unable to move, as the small, black creature scurried to wake her, acting like a tiny alarm clock. Wanting to understand why he had come to rescue her, he questioned the crazy woman about her mother. Then, a gentle hand touched his face, and the crazed woman was overcome with emotion, seeing that the child had grown. At that moment, it dawned on her. She realized that tears streamed down the mother's face as she recalled a happy memory with her daughter. Finally, after all the drama and the chaos, mother and daughter were reunited, just like in a heartwarming movie. Witnessing this, the assassin couldn't help but cry, thinking of herself as sensitive. Meng explained that the black-haired boy's ability had triggered this emotional outburst. Zhopang was relieved, fearing she might have been developing feelings, and He suggested forming a team with the newcomer for the upcoming test, acknowledging the beginner's talent. With only 5 seconds remaining before the test concluded, the giant suggested meeting in the main city to inquire with the protagonist. With that, Luya said goodbye to them. Upon disconnecting, he felt as if a weight had been lifted from him. He then addressed the entity, urging it to stop pretending, noticing that the other travelers had already left, the monsters, a paper-level guy there. Everyone was excited since it was the first time someone from the lowest level had joined such an intense dating show, were annoyed that the manager had survived, and were curious as to why Luo was still present after the test concluded. He explained that he was walkthroughing the game, looking for a way to save his own life, like a digital Indiana Jones. He also stated that it would be wrong to abandon the manager after finding out that he was the mastermind behind everything. At that moment, the main mission concerning the truth of Alfros Pren Express officially began. Upon completing the trial and becoming a manager, our hero would receive epic rewards and an impressive title. However, rejecting the manager position and revealing the reality of Yellow Springs in the hidden mission would change the reward. Still, the young man decided to accept the position, which meant he would remain on the map a little longer, as the system wished him luck. Soon after, the entity pointed out how unique he was, even among travelers, and began to speak through a random puppet, calling Luya by her first name. Lu was intrigued by how familiar this character seemed to be. The entity immediately scolded him for his ego, recognizing him as the survivor of the dating dial, and claimed to know his hidden tricks, such as his hypnosis ability, which required physical contact, something the young man did not deny. He also knew about his gigantic scissors, capable of damaging ferocious-level monsters. The old manager highlighted the young man's high evil value, which allowed him to enter fierce trials, and was the reason he had been keeping an eye on him. Luo tried to provoke him. Intense. Luo asked the system to explain the entire hierarchy of strength levels to him. The system explained that there were many ranks, with paper being the using a puppet, and just as the entity was about to take the bait, it quickly regained its calm, only to be stabbed in the head by Jade's girlfriend. Reveal was like an unexpected thriller twist. The monsters were confused as the human explained that this wasn't the real girlfriend. The enemy claimed that the deceased manager had merely been a vessel. At that moment, the mastermind took control of another puppet, praising the participant's quick thinking, which allowed the mastermind to take his place. The traveler pointed out that the true mastermind had been anticipated from the very beginning of the adventure. He who feeds on the needs of his clients must be the greediest of all. According to the protagonist, the real enemy was none other than the will of the delivery service itself, which feeds on failed orders to become all-powerful. At that moment, the numerous broken dolls began to rise from the floor, resembling a disturbing toy shop. The furious fat man charged at them, ready to fight, but was completely bewildered when a torn puppet latched onto his leg, halting his charge. The mother quickly recalled her gun and pointed it, noting how the puppets had increased in power. The entity then revealed the truth to the human, stating, "Desire is the real thing for all forms of life, nature that is usually bound by rules and moral senses." And while the entity played according to those rules, our hero was different. His heart was beating so hard, giving the sniper an even better chance, but the kidnapper hushed him with a shh. Then, he moved behind the young man to weakest, while Elite and Feroz were the highest. The boy froze when he realized that his first challenge was a brutal dungeon with no extra lives, was an unrestricted wildcard, making him the perfect candidate to be the next manager of Yellow Spring. The puppet began to wrapping the human in threads, amplifying their enormous evil aura, and proposing that they become a single, super powerful being. But the protagonist, he knew he would only be a pawn, and tried to argue that, unlike the entity, travelers couldn't harness that evil vibe. Without, however, Lu said, "No, that's not true," and then unleashed demonic offspring. Meanwhile, in another part of the map, lightning illuminated the HS. 2 hunters were running for their lives, fleeing from the centipede. They were confused because the manager hadn't appeared to reprimand them for their failed mission. Then, one of them saw something in the sky. It had white hair and a dark aura. Suddenly, a demon wielding purple scissors appeared. Seeing this, the entity was completely astonished. It was witnessing a human wielding an evil aura. Our hero decided to unleash his technique, No. 10. Link, the Lifebinder, launched a mega attack that inflicted impressive damage. Meanwhile, inside the evil kingdom, Slot was enjoying a peaceful nap. Suddenly, Slot sensed something unusual. The sleepyhead identified it as an aura of a ferocious level. Back at the battle scene, the Yalspring Express building had vanished. The mother did her best to shield her son, but the little boy remained still. The host began to brag, saying that the human's death would be the most epic on the stage, only to be humiliated when the protagonist did. Stone was overturned, and the chubby lump freed itself from the debris. While Jaden's girlfriend couldn't believe he had survived, the monsters were left. Stunned by the destruction the young man had caused, they inquired about the culprit, immediately going on high alert, but were left perplexed, as it concerned the sin of sloth. Following this, they demanded a comprehensive report on the recent events. After hearing everything, the annoyed man decided to go to Earth to confront the protagonist. The two were relieved that they hadn't been eliminated. Just then, someone rushed toward Slot, none other than the crazed woman, begging for her son's life. She bowed deeply, saying she was willing to do anything for him. Slot explained that the darkness was the core of the little boy's existence, and that as that darkness disappeared, it was only natural that he too would fade away. This news utterly devastated. The mother, Slot, couldn't bear it and decided to give him a gift, a strange object that turned out to be the Azure-level blue lantern, which allows the user to absorb energy of the soul and use it at will. In the end, the demon explained that this item required someone to sacrifice their life, but even with that sacrifice, the goal would still cause them to lose their memories. He asked the mother to think carefully before deciding, fully aware of the consequences of offering her soul. With that, the woman cried one last time and activated the Azure Lantern. She wanted to tell her son one last story about a girl who cried about everything until one day called him a burnt-out light bulb. The host was confused, so the protagonist explained that he was the only one who fit that description. Then, he asked to meet. She received a doll to which she became very attached. From that day on, the girl shared everything with her toy, becoming happier and beginning to grow up. At that moment, the girl opened her eyes and woke up. At first, she was confused about where she was, but then she noticed something that made her smile from ear to ear. She found herself in front of a magnificent, shiny new doll. Meanwhile, in the human world where our hero reappeared, he was very intrigued by the recent events. After fulfilling Yadospren Express's will and completing the trial, he was able to finish both the main mission and the hidden quest with a perfect score. But just when he was about to claim his rewards, he was kicked out of the game. This made him angry because it shouldn't have happened. Then he heard a knock at the door. The rapid tapping turned into loud banging, leaving Lu Yao completely confused. Shortly after, terrifying creatures and horrible figures burst into the room. The patient immediately thought he was hallucinating, which seemed very strange to him since he had just taken his medication. He decided to ignore them, but one of them lunged at him in a ninja-like style. The protagonist exclaimed, "What?" and managed to dodge just in time. Although, he received a scratch on his face from that monstrous tongue. He was shocked because no hallucination should hurt like that. The nurses said, "Oh, he's not okay." They tried to talk to him, but he remained silent. They thought, "Yes, he's hallucinating again." One of the nurses tried to help him, but his date, hoping that the guests would accept him, allowing him to survive. The presenter tried to tell him that his form was just a projection, but all he saw were two creepy monsters. He thought, "I have to go into hero mode and defeat these beasts." Suddenly, the monster charged against him, so he decided to escape by jumping over them like a parkour professional and ran as if he were in a video game. A nurse said, "Report the fugitive patient." As he continued running, he noticed something terrifying. A giant creature blocked his path and stabbed him in the leg. Oh, he felt a serious pain and couldn't stand. Lu thought, "This is not a game." Then, he thought about taking something out of his backpack. Just then, an employee of the hospital found him and asked what was happening. He responded that he had tripped and fallen and that he didn't have any serious injuries. The man tried to calm him down and take him back, but Lu said, "No," and ran away. He jumped out of the window, exclaiming, "What?" Meanwhile, at the orphanage, the children asked their big brother, when would he return? Jindali replied, "I'll be back soon, when I'm rich." He told them to stay calm and behave themselves. So, a boy pointed at a stranger, a young man in pajamas who was walking with difficulty. The orphans said he definitely came from a hospital, but then they noticed his intense and terrifying aura. Another player commented, "Danger alert." The young savage started causing chaos with his sword. The blonde took to the children, saving them just in time, and told them to leave. He had a green-quality teleportation scroll to send someone away. Moved on to introduce the female guests. The first to enter was a woman with a striking figure and soft, kissable lips. She seemed interested in him. Children worried about their brother, but he said, "Don't worry, I'm strong." But seeing the scissor-wielding boy's crazy power, he realized that he was in serious trouble. Our hero raised his sword, ready to fight. Jindali fell to his knees, reminding the hero that he was his son. But the hero told him to run, saying that he was losing control of himself. Seeing this, the blonde told the children to run away. Luya could no longer contain herself, and unleashed a huge black slash. The other player fled, calling for help, and just when the children thought their brother was lost, someone intervened and saved him. The shockwave from the attack almost knocked the blonde over. He opened his eyes and saw a creature from another realm, Slot, praising the hero's willpower for resisting the source of evil, even if only for a moment. He was not surprised by the abilities of his chosen one, and said he would grant him descent. Using the demonic power had been an excellent decision. He then used his Rakan Sen's ability, freezing the area around him and emitting a vibration. Super relaxing. The children were amazed by the snow and began to feel sleepy, slowly falling asleep. Loa asked the demon if she was behind all of this. She apologized, saying that she didn't want to mess with him and that she was surprised that he had released the entire source of the evil. He said he wanted to hear her side of the story. Slot promised to explain, but pointed out that they had drawn too much attention, so he had to. The protagonist, but he was totally disgusted. The host explained that this guest star enjoyed asking about their appearance before devouring them, and deal with some nosy humans who had seen magical snow and a demon in the human world, as well as a strange magical barrier. The player, he realized he was in another world. Just then, someone told him to step aside. Jindali quickly obeyed, wondering when this strange person had appeared. This person immediately pointed out that Duke Slot hadn't even bothered to inform her of his arrival, and Slot, he responded that the night watchmen and their routine checkups were so boring they could lull even a hyperactive squirrel to sleep. The stranger reminded him, politely, that she was contractually obligated to request permission before entering the human world, which greatly upset the entity, who challenged the man to try to seal her. He confidently stated that even though Chino wasn't at full power, his pathetic seal could never contain her. Still, he revealed that, if the demon planned to conquer Earth, he and his colleagues were fully prepared to enter superhero mode and defend it with their lives. Slot berated the night watchman for being suicidal before revealing that the real reason for their presence was an underground individual. The man had a hard time believing him because, according to him, this guy was just a weakling with no experience in otherworldly things. He even compared him to the nearby garbage, which made him immediately realize that she was talking about him. The demon was surprised at how simple the night watchmen were. Feed on their fear. When asked what he thought of her, the hero gathered all his courage and complimented her eyes. Then, it was the next guest's turn, Nocturnal, which intrigued the man. So, he went to personally check on the unconscious young man, and what he found left him completely amazed. Quickly, he urged his colleagues to stop what they were doing and come closer, and they immediately obeyed, causing the barrier to disappear. The men were shocked to see a source of extreme evil that was still active and present. They inquired about the young man's situation, and the demon explained that he was now dealing with the after effects of awakening a small fragment of evil power, which had allowed him to reach the fierce level. This news completely surprised them, as they found it difficult to believe Slot's words. Seeing that they didn't fully trust her, the demon decided to take the human to the monster realm and never return. Only then did the three night watchmen stop her, arguing that she couldn't simply take someone away from there. Slot was intrigued by this resistance. The first of the three men threatened to blow himself up if she didn't leave the young man alone. Young man in peace. She couldn't help but smile, and asked if they could really protect him, knowing the danger that surrounded the source of evil. With that, the man decided to reveal himself, stating that it was very rare for a human to become a source of evil, so they would protect him with their lives. She decided to leave him in their care, but not before reminding them that the public beta was approaching soon, leaving the man unprepared for a fierce level test. The second guest, My Slanderous Legs, a show regular who enjoyed laying eggs during her blind dates. Facing that creature, fierce. Then, the demon addressed Sign, pointing out that the Night Watchers previously relied on the 6 lords of the southern constellation to defend them, saying there was no point in pushing the beta any further since they were all gone. Sin had no room to argue, but he asked, politely, for Slot to leave Earth. She decided to do so immediately, but before leaving, she leaned towards the heroes and kissed one on the cheek, forehead. The old man was intrigued, The nervous young man claimed that she was only giving him a definitive shield of conscience and urged him to continue onward. With that, the creature finally retreated. One of the night watchmen tried to argue that it wasn't necessary to use a kiss to cast the protective spell, but the old man told him to shut his mouth. Meanwhile, Jin Doi, who had been hiding, felt relieved to see that his father was unharmed. Still, thus, he began to think that he was as bad as the previous heroes, the ones who were almost eliminated, but he couldn't help but realize that what happened was beyond the hero's control, out of the hero's control. As he tried to observe more closely, he was startled when a man appeared behind him, introducing himself as Yuan Suan. The night watchman claimed that the boy possessed great talent and that he could develop it for the right price, but Jindali was terrified and asked to be left alone. To leave him alone, the man refused, claiming that he was too weak to survive the public beta. Just like that, the blonde was dragged away by his pants. Resembling a spider, the protagonist decided to praise her beauty, and then the third guest arrived. The protagonist was ready to face Pants. Meanwhile, elsewhere on Earth, Joan stood in front of a rewards board, lost in thought and very upset by being ignored. She even decided to eliminate the hero the next time they met. Just then, her phone started ringing, and when she answered it, his uncle yelled at him for his bad manners. According to the agreement, the night watchman should no longer exist, and he assured him that he would hang up if they didn't need anything from her. The man tried to explain that they had a mission for her, but she said, "No, I'm not interested." Then he mentioned a mega reward, and suddenly, she changed her attitude, becoming interested in kindness and generosity. Meanwhile, at the Sacred Heart Orphanage, a boy asked the man what had happened. He introduced himself as a doctor and asked if he remembered anything about the incident. The boy just shook his head, saying, "No, nothing." The doctor replied, "Take care, kiddo." Later, when he inquired about the results, the player explained that the opponent possessed a power that erased memory, but he instructed his friend to inform another Schwan that he would be keeping watch over the hero, and then, boom, an all-out war erupted between angelic and demonic creatures. Angelic and demonic. The winged warriors realized that they needed to defeat their king in order to stop the chaos, but the demon god was far too powerful. He displayed his power, proclaiming that he was the source of all evil as he wiped the attackers off the map. Then, the creature summoned the previous two guests, willing to do whatever it took to survive. But the third was the worst, my lush butt, a butcher from the 7 deadly sins to pass judgment on this kingdom. At that moment, someone awakened our hero. He opened his eyes, completely confused as to where. He was there when he noticed a huge magic circle above his head, with several sorcerers chanting a powerful spell. He was intrigued, as Slot explained that he was reliving the old memories of the previous source of evil. He appeared in astral form, saying that he had placed a fragment of his mind into Lu's, and that he would have lost control if Lu hadn't woken up. Lu requested information about the state of the human world, and she decided to show him, leaving him very curious as he found himself standing before H-Pan. In the real world, our hero was completely chained up. The girl confronted her uncle, telling him that he had lost his mind. He was surprised by her audacity, but ignored it, asking if she knew the new vessel of evil. She confirmed that, "Yes, but I didn't know their true identity." Jopang then inquired about the blonde, who was actually J.N. Dolly, wondering if they should befriend the girl who seemed close to the protagonist. He attempted to introduce himself, but was interrupted by an assassin who drew a gun. Before they could shoot the hero, they became extremely annoyed when the old man intervened at the last moment. He explained that they needed the source of evil to remain alive, which was the reason he stopped the bullet. Take cover from the shooter, forcing the authorities to move on to Plan B. The Reen suggested that he close the windows and doors and hide, keeping watch in case. Endless Abyss, who had tortured and killed many previous dates. Unleashing a ferocious roar, the host looked at the young man and asked about the third. Witnessing this, the blonde became utterly terrified. Hang demanded an explanation, mentioning the death of their master. He suffered irreparable wounds. With that, Japan decided to confront him in order to protect the source of evil. Despite knowing what he had done, she explained how the 6 divisions had disappeared, and the 3 elders were no longer united because of the previous bearer of the source of evil. At that moment, the son intervened, saying that his father had nothing to do with the previous bearer of evil. She explained that most of those chosen by the source of extreme evil end up dead, while a few go insane and become killing machines. With that, the blonde finally understood why the hero was so aggressive. The elder explained that this was why the humans and the consensus had agreed to eliminate the bearer as soon as they were found. The source Of extreme evil comes original sin, an incurable disease that chooses its host at random. The end was always the same: death or a descent into bloodthirsty madness. The assassin then asked the blonde what he would do if he encountered a newly awakened wielder of the original sin. While he was trying to understand it, the new wielder said that the only solution was to kill him to prevent future disasters. The demon found his enthusiastic response somewhat ironic. The old man revealed how humans were never meant to wage war against other realities because they could not overcome the fierce power levels. So, the contestant was actually very feminine. The creature felt completely offended and ran off the stage crying, while the host told them to calm down. They were destined to lose. However, what ultimately gave them victory was none other than the source of extreme evil itself. During the first invasion, a mysterious figure appeared out of nowhere, just as the humans were on the verge of complete defeat. This man, who somehow unlocked epic levels of power, became the shining hero who offered humanity a chance. In the end, monsters and humans decided to de-escalate and transform total war into a twisted game to determine the ultimate victor. Joe Pink remained an enigma, as the old man had never revealed this history. He explained that it was a highly classified secret protected by the Night Watchers. Almost no one knew about it, and it became even more secretive after the down bearer went insane. The old man was confused when the girl said, "Aha, now I understand." She added that this story explains why the Watchers, the Nocturnals, haven't launched their suicide attack against all the monsters yet. It turns out, there was once a total beast on their team, so he told him to calm down and drop the arrogance. Turning serious, he said that they must protect the new wielder, and that they would eliminate him if he ever lost control. Control. At that moment, the weaker members said, "We'll take care of this." The stronger ones, although they didn't fully understand everything, said that they witnessed the hero losing control, stating that he would have been destroyed if he hadn't held on long enough for Slot to appear and intervene, or risk being eliminated from the program. Lou pointed out that none of the women met his race's beauty standards. The radiant figure, this implied that the new wielder might not be a complete puppet of the great evil. When the old man inquired if he believed Liu Yao had the courage to face, he responded to evil completely. The Night Watchman was skeptical, since not even the last bearer had been able to break free from their rage mode. Jindali, he said that the Slot demon would support him in this endeavor. With that, the old man decided to awaken our hero as soon as possible, before giving the young man a surprise gift, which turned out to be a golden ticket, known as the Blue-Level Life Substitute Talisman, which allowed him to avoid death by abandoning the mission. The blonde was completely amazed by this epic item. The Night Watchman explained that the only way to help was to increase the hero's will of the hero to protect him from the corruption of evil, leaving the boy impressed, and he suggested that he and his team should join Liu Yao in order to distribute the evil energies and quell the epic trials he was facing. So he told the blonde that the talisman would be his if he agreed to join them off squadron. Amen. He replied that there was one who did, Miss Parody, a beauty of a fierce caliber, and one of the 7 deadly sins of the abyss. He became extremely intrigued, but, to his surprise, no one came out on stage. The host received a message. Miss Parody said she preferred to find love from the comfort of her couch and watch the show from home. The luminous figure explained that the boy would have to spend a day out with each guest. With everything set, the game began. Meanwhile, the seller was trying to convince the jury in the public court that he had no connection to the protagonist, claiming he had run away, thinking he was the one being pursued, and that he would have helped if he had known what was going on. The judge informed Jin Tol that the court found him innocent and free of all charges. The young man sighed in relief, but because he had manufactured and sold fake high-level equipment, he received 200 evil points and was sent to the city of the extremely evil. And so, the young man was dragged away screaming, insisting that the accusations were false. When they inquired whether they should, the assault team arrived. Even though he had told him to shut up, the kidnapper did as he was told. The attack team was surprised to see that they pursue the protagonist. The referee stated that it was pointless, as a rookie would never survive such a fierce trial. Meanwhile, in the world of the show, dating my voluptuous backside and staring at a dead body, she was furious at the hero's comment and decided she would teach him a lesson if she ever saw him again. Then he heard her voice. Our hero, who had enraged the Butcher of the Abyss, found himself face to face with her wrath when she appeared before him. At that moment, he saw the gigantic maiden grip her weapon and raise it high, ready to bring it down with tremendous force. With that, he decided to deliver the final blow. And, at that instant, Lu Yao began to mutter about the gentle maiden he had unintentionally offended, causing the axe to stop just before striking his head. Hit his head. His words piqued the giantess's curiosity. Lu Yao then stated that he had met many women in his life, but that it was the first time he felt so nervous in front of a woman, searching for her tender heart within her enormous body, completely captivated by her. Flattered, he then called her kind, humble, and intelligent. Hearing that, her demeanor shifted to friendly. Luo commented that he had felt sad seeing her leave so angry and so quickly, adding that few women possessed such a unique temperament. This caused the monstrous maiden's heart to race, allowing her to enter a state of emotional stirring. The man mentioned an old saying, that true beauty comes from within, like the most delicate flower. Movements had been anticipated, and one hesitated to enter because the kidnapper possessed an important object. The offender was upset by how that blooms in the most horrible places. Then he compared my lush butt to that magnificent flower. The axe fell. Upon striking the ground, the hero turned around, confused. The gigantic creature had a very feminine expression after emerging from her obsessed state. Our hero earned 500 points and still felt a chill. The giantess assured him that hearing someone speak to her like that helped her make a decision, leaving the protagonist confused. And so, she took a deep breath. Luo immediately understood what she was going to do. The butcher demon shouted at the top of her lungs, addressing her rivals, that the male guest preferred her over them. Contestants 2 and 3 retreated to their arguing state, and the giantess felt relieved. Now, the protagonist was in a bind, since that declaration would make it difficult to approach the other two. Miss Bastabon. Points. And still he felt a chill. The giantess assured him that hearing someone talk about her in that way helped her make a decision, leaving the confused protagonist. And so, she took a deep breath. Luo immediately understood what she was going to do. The butcher demon screamed at the top of her lungs, addressing her rivals, declaring that the male guest preferred her. The contestants, 2 and 3, retreated back to arguing, and the giantess felt relieved. Now the protagonist was in a bind, since that statement would make it more difficult to approach the other two. Miss Bastabon. The web shot out, ensnaring her foot and sending her crashing to the ground. It was at that moment that she was covered in spider slime. The arrival of her rival especially irritated her. The abyss demon spider claimed that the butcher was too clueless to handle a man like our hero, adding that she would be more suitable and train him well. La Carnicera, now trapped, tried to fight for her man, but the spider completely ignored her and asked the protagonist if he would accept her eggs. Seeing that this fighter was now thoroughly disgusted, our Manchi was back.